The landowner's truck sat like a wounded beast at the edge of the dirt road, its hood open, steam hissing softly as if the machine itself was whispering defeat, and men who had spent their lives fixing engines stood around it shaking their heads, wiping grease from their hands, muttering the same sentence over and over again: "It can't be fixed." For Ravi, standing a few steps back with his worn jacket zipped up to his chin and his toolbox resting beside his feet like a loyal dog, those words hit harder than any insult he'd ever swallowed. He hadn't worked in 6 months, not since the factory shut down and the city chewed him up and spat him back into this village with nothing but skill in his hands and doubt in his chest. He wasn't supposed to be here today. He had come only because hunger has a way of pushing pride into a dark corner. The landowner, Malik Haroon, was watching from a distance, arms folded, eyes sharp, a man who owned acres of land, dozens of machines, and the fate of half the village. This truck mattered, not because it was expensive, but because it carried the legal papers for a land auction that would decide who stayed and who lost everything by sunset. Mechanics had been called from neighboring towns, promises of big money made, tempers flared when none of them could get the engine to even turn over. Ravi heard the verdict whispered again: "Scrap it, tow it, nothing can be done," and something inside him stirred, not confidence, but defiance mixed with desperation. He stepped forward before fear could stop him, his voice steady even though his hands trembled, and said he could take a look. Laughter followed, sharp and dismissive. Someone scoffed at his torn shoes, another pointed out he hadn't been invited. Malik's eyes narrowed, measuring him like a faulty part. "You?" he asked, disbelief dripping from the single word. Ravi nodded, already kneeling, already opening his toolbox, because once an engine calls to you, you don't ignore it. As he listened, not with ears, but with instinct, he realized the problem wasn't where everyone was looking. It wasn't the fuel line. It wasn't the battery. It was something deeper, something no one wanted to admit because it meant dismantling more than metal. Ravi asked for permission to remove a sealed component, something stamped with the manufacturer's warning. The crowd fell silent. Malik stepped closer, his voice cold. "If you destroy it," he said, "you'll pay for it." Ravi didn't look up. "If I don't," he replied softly, "you lose everything today." That was the moment the landowner agreed, not out of trust, but out of fear. Ravi did something no mechanic there dared to do. He broke the seal. He tore into the heart of the engine with a focus that made the world fade, remembering nights fixing machines under flickering bulbs, remembering his father's voice telling him engines lie unless you force them to tell the truth. Minutes stretched. Sweat dripped. A hidden crack revealed itself, one that caused pressure to fail only after warming up, brilliantly designed, disastrously overlooked. Ravi improvised, not with spare parts, but with metal reshaped by hand, a fix so risky it bordered on madness. When he finally stepped back, silence swallowed the road. Malik turned the key. Once. Twice. The engine roared to life like it had been waiting all along. Cheers erupted. Relief flooded faces. But Ravi didn't smile. Because as the truck ran, he noticed something else: documents visible through the window, names he recognized, including his own mother's, tied to land that had been taken years ago under suspicious circumstances. The fix had worked. The truck was saved. But in that moment, Ravi realized he hadn't just repaired a machine. He had uncovered a truth buried deeper than any engine fault, and the cost of knowing it would be far greater than unemployment. As Malik climbed into the driver's seat, their eyes met, and something passed between them: recognition, suspicion, and the beginning of a battle neither of them expected. If you're feeling the tension build and want to know how an unemployed mechanic's choice turns into a life-changing confrontation, the truck rolled forward a few feet, its engine humming steadily, and the crowd began to disperse, satisfied, relieved, already talking about payments and deadlines, but Ravi stayed frozen where he stood, his eyes locked on the papers behind the windshield, his mind racing faster than the pistons he had just coaxed back to life, because he knew those names, knew the Handwriting on the margins, knew the seal that had stolen his family's land years ago under the excuse of unpaid dues, and suddenly the engine's heat felt cold compared to the realization burning through him, that this breakdown had not been an accident, that someone had wanted the truck delayed just long enough to pressure desperate villagers into signing away what little they had left. Malik stepped down from the driver's seat, his gratitude already fading into calculation, and tossed Ravi a wad of cash without counting it, as if money could erase the line Ravi had crossed simply by seeing too much. Ravi caught it out of reflex but didn't pocket it, instead asking a question no one expected, a question that sliced through the air sharper than any insult: "Why is my mother's land on those papers?" The road went quiet again, heavier this time, the kind of silence that warns you you've wandered somewhere dangerous. Malik's jaw tightened, his smile thin and controlled, and he said Ravi was mistaken, that many lands shared similar names, that an unemployed mechanic shouldn't confuse rust with reality. But Ravi had grown up poor, not blind, and he stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Malik could hear, telling him about the forged boundary markers, the midnight surveyors, the signatures taken from illiterate farmers who trusted the wrong men. Malik's eyes flicked toward the others, then back to Ravi, and in that instant Ravi understood the truth, not just about the land, but about himself. Fixing the truck had given him leverage, but leverage is dangerous in the wrong hands, especially when those hands belong to someone with nothing left to lose. Malik leaned in, his voice calm but deadly, warning Ravi that engines were simpler than people, that machines forgive mistakes but powerful men do not, and that unemployment was a problem easily replaced by something far worse. Ravi felt the weight of those words, felt fear claw at his chest, yet something steadier rose above it, years of swallowed anger, of watching his mother bow her head while injustice strutted past her. He handed the money back. The gesture shocked Malik more than the repair ever had. "I didn't fix your truck for this," Ravi said, "I fixed it because truth deserves to move forward too." The landowner's face hardened, and he ordered the driver to leave immediately, but not before promising Ravi they would speak again. Privately. As dust swallowed the truck and the crowd thinned to whispers, Ravi stood alone with his toolbox, knowing he had just traded silence for danger, bread for battle, and anonymity for a target on his back. What he didn't know, what he couldn't see yet, was that someone else had been watching from the shade of a neem tree, someone who had filmed the entire repair, the argument, the documents through the windshield, and who now slipped away with evidence that could either destroy Malik's empire or cost Ravi his life. Chapter 1 closes not with victory, but with a choice already made, a line crossed that cannot be uncrossed, and if you want to see how one unemployed mechanic's courage turns into a fight against power, corruption, and fate itself. Night fell faster than Ravi expected, as if the village itself wanted to hide what was coming, and by the time he reached his small rented room at the edge of town, the weight of the day finally crashed down on him, his hands still smelling of oil, his ears still ringing with Malik's warning, yet his mind unable to forget the image of his mother's name stamped onto papers that decided the fate of generations with a careless signature. He barely slept, jolting awake at every distant engine sound, because once you challenge power, even silence feels loud, and just before dawn, a knock came, not hurried, not polite, but deliberate, the kind that tells you running won't help. Standing outside was the man from the neem tree, the one Ravi hadn't known was there, introducing himself as Imran, a local schoolteacher whose brother had lost land the same way Ravi's family had, whose quiet life had been shaped by the same injustice, and who now held a phone containing proof that could tear Malik Haroon's empire apart. Imran spoke quickly, urgently, explaining that Malik wasn't just a landowner but a broker for larger interests, men who used machines, deadlines, and fear to strip villages clean without ever dirtying their hands, and that the truck Ravi fixed was only one piece of a much larger game. Ravi listened, fear and resolve tangling in his chest, because he understood now why the breakdown had mattered so much, why Malik had been desperate, and why helping him, unknowingly, had nearly helped bury the truth forever.